Hey guys, tonight we step into the heart of a medieval castle. It's just before dawn, and the sky outside is still a cool, dark blue, with only the faintest hint of sunlight beginning to creep over the horizon. You can hear the distant crowing of a rooster, loud enough to wake the entire castle. But somehow, it feels comforting, like the signal of a new day. The first sounds of the day begin to filter in. The soft shuffle of servants moving in the corridors, the crackling of the hearth starting to warm the great hall, and the occasional creak of the heavy oak door as it opens and shuts. The castle feels like it's slowly stretching and yawning, coming alive in the stillness. From the highest tower to the deepest cellar, there's movement, even if you can't see it. The flickering light of candles and torches cast shadows across the stone walls. It's a world that's just starting to wake up, quiet but full of purpose. It's the beginning of a busy day, and everyone here has a role to play, from the lord of the castle to the lowliest servant. But you don't rush to start your day. Instead, you listen to the soft sounds of the waking castle, the creaks of wood and the low hum of activity reverberate through the stone walls. This is a place that's been standing for centuries, and even the walls seem to know the rhythm of daily life. Every creak, every footstep, every whisper in the halls has its place in the great story of this castle. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and the time down in the comments. I love seeing where and when you're tuning in from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. As the first rays of dawn light up the castle's high windows, you feel a soft chill in the air, a reminder of the early morning. It's a new day in the castle, and though the lord's family may still be fast asleep, the servants are already in motion. Their day starts well before anyone else's, hours before breakfast, when the castle is still quiet and the faint echoes of early risers are just a whisper. They are up, dressed in simple tunics and aprons, moving about the castle with a practiced ease. Each servant knows their place, and each task is essential to the rhythm of the day. First, you hear the scurrying of the chambermaids, sweeping the halls, dusting the grand tapestries hanging on the walls, and preparing the rooms for the day. Their soft footsteps echo as they work in the shadows of the stone corridors, a quiet hum of activity in the otherwise still castle. Meanwhile, in the kitchens, the cooks are already busy stoking the fire, the smell of freshly baked bread beginning to fill the air. The rhythmic chopping of vegetables, the cracking of eggs, and the clatter of pots on the stove provide a comforting soundtrack to the early morning. Outside, the stable hands are tending to the horses, their breath visible in the cool morning air as they feed, groom, and prepare the steeds for the day's work. The smell of hay and leather fills the stables, a sharp contrast to the more refined scents that fill the castle itself. The horses, nuzzle the hands of the stable boys, the low whinnying and snorting mixing with the soft sounds of the castle coming to life. Historians still argue whether the life of the servants was harder or easier than it appeared. Some say they lived with a sense of constant labor, while others point out the community and rhythm that gave them a role in something larger than themselves. Either way, the castle would not function without them. The servants are the unseen backbone, ensuring that the Lord's family can enjoy the luxuries of castle life without ever noticing the effort it takes to make everything run smoothly. As you move through the halls, it's clear that this is a world built on precision and practicality. There's a quiet hum of work, of lives intertwined in the service of others. You feel the weight of their tasks, yet there's a certain comfort in it, the knowledge that everyone has a part to play. Whether tending to the fire, preparing meals, or scrubbing floors, each servant carries their duty with a sense of pride. You pause for a moment, taking in the serenity of the morning, the stillness that exists before the castle truly comes alive. The soft footsteps of the servants echo in the background as you turn your attention to the grand hall, where the family will soon gather and the day's activities will unfold. As the servants finish their morning tasks, you step into the grand hall of the castle, a vast space that stands as the heart of daily life. The large stone fireplace crackles with the early morning fire, warming the room as the flickering light dances across the high wooden beams overhead. The scent of freshly baked bread mixes with the smoky warmth of the fire, creating a homey atmosphere. Long wooden tables, their surfaces worn smooth from years of use, stretch across the hall. At the center, the Lord's family is beginning to gather. The family, still in their sleep attire, robes and tunics of rich wool and linen, begin to trickle in. The Lord, with his beard still unkempt and a tired but regal expression, takes his seat at the head of the table. His wife, dressed in a warm russet gown, sits beside him, greeting the children as they slowly wander in, yawning and rubbing their eyes. The children, dressed in simpler versions of their parents' attire, climb into their places, their shoes scuffing on the cold stone floor. As the servants begin to bring in platters of food, warm porridge, freshly baked bread, bowls of fruit, and pitchers of ale, the room fills with chatter. The Lord gestures to the servants, his voice deep but tired. He comments on the day's activities, his mind already turning to the responsibilities awaiting him. The lady of the castle, ever poised, discusses plans for the upcoming feast. The chatter around the table is pleasant, but there's a sense of routine to it. This is the moment where the castle's life flows naturally. The quiet hum of family, work, and nourishment coming together in harmony. A young squire hurries to serve the Lord's cup of wine, his movements quick and respectful. A servant lad brings a plate of roasted meats, sliced thin, for the Lord's breakfast, his hands steady despite the weight of the tray. The food is simple but hearty, a reflection of the castle's focus on sustaining those who live here, rather than indulging in excess. Each plate, each meal, is prepared with care yet efficiency. There is little time to waste, especially as the castle's duties loom large. Despite the hustle of the morning, there's an underlying peace to the breakfast. The sounds of cutlery clinking, the chatter of family, and the warmth of the fire form a comforting backdrop to the business of the day. For a brief moment, the world outside, the work, the politics, and the responsibilities of the castle seems distant. There's just the slow rhythm of breakfast, the shared meal, and the connection of family and community. Historians often debate the role of these meals in the lives of medieval families. Some argue that this was where important discussions took place. Decisions about family matters, alliances, and upcoming events. Others believe that this was simply a time for quiet respite before the work of the day took over. Either way, these morning moments were essential to the flow of the castle's life, and they set the tone for the hours to come. As you watch the family interact, you can't help but notice the bond they share. Even in a place as grand and daunting as a medieval castle, there's still room for family warmth. A shared laugh, a playful remark between siblings, or a fond glance exchanged between the lord and lady. All of these small, quiet gestures speak to the core of castle life. Family, unity, and the continuation of tradition. As the breakfast comes to an end, the family's attention shifts, and so does the mood in the castle. The day has officially begun, and each member of the household begins to slip into their respective roles. The castle is not just a home, it's the center of a world. It's where the Lord's authority is solidified, where decisions affecting not only the family, but the entire community are made. The walls themselves seem to whisper with the weight of power, history, and tradition. The Lord stands, his tall frame cutting through the ambient light of the hall. He stretches, a sign that the day ahead will be long, and as he walks toward his study, his movements are calm but purposeful. The study is his domain, the place where the lord of the castle rules over not just his family, but the land. Maps of his estates cover the walls, and the heavy wooden desk in the center of the room is littered with parchments and letters, requests from his subjects, updates from his stewards, and reports from the village. The Lord's decisions today might affect the farmers who work his fields, the craftsmen who build his castle, or the neighboring estates with whom he must maintain political alliances. As you follow him through the castle, you notice the interactions between the Lord and his subjects. Outside the study, the steward waits, hands clasped behind his back, ready to report the day's matters. His voice is respectful and direct as he informs the Lord of any problems that need to be addressed, whether it's a disagreement between neighboring landowners or a shortfall in grain supplies. The Lord listens intently, nodding and occasionally making a note on the parchment before him. Meanwhile, in the outer courtyard, the common folk are already going about their work. The farmers and laborers in the fields, the blacksmith hammering away at his anvil, the women at the wells, all are connected to the castle in some way. The castle's reach extends beyond its stone walls. It's the heart of the village, the center of its political, social, and economic life. The people here rely on the Lord's protection and guidance, but in turn, they provide for him, offering their labor, their goods, and their loyalty. The castle is a hub of activity, with the noble family at its center. But it's the servants, soldiers, craftsmen, and common folk that keep it functioning. The Lord's power is tied to their labor, and in exchange, he provides protection, justice, and, in many cases, the stability of the community. The Lord's decisions, made in his study, affect not only his family's well-being, but the prosperity of the village and the health of the land. Historians still argue about how much influence the common people had in these medieval societies. Some believe that the power of the Lord was absolute, with few opportunities for the peasantry to voice concerns. Others argue that the relationships between the Lord and his subjects were more complex, with a shared understanding of mutual dependence. Either way, life in the castle was far from isolated. Its role in the wider community was undeniable. As the Lord moves deeper into the castle's core, you realize that this place is not just a symbol of power, but of responsibility. The castle is both a sanctuary and a burden, a place where the weight of history, duty, and family legacy all come to rest. It's where the ruler of the castle makes decisions that ripple outward, affecting everyone who calls the land home. The echoes of the castle's role in the wider world continue to reverberate through the halls, even as the day moves on. Outside, the sounds of village life fill the air, but inside the stone walls, decisions are being made that will shape the future. And it's this balance between the power of the Lord and the needs of the community that makes the castle both a sanctuary and a stage for the unfolding drama of medieval life. The air inside the Lord's study is thick with the smell of parchment and ink, a contrast to the fresh air outside. As you enter the room, the atmosphere shifts. It's quieter, more deliberate, with a sense of formality that comes with decision-making. The Lord is already at his desk, surrounded by stacks of papers and ledgers. His study is a blend of practicality and nobility. Heavy wooden furniture, the faint glow of the fire in the hearth, and the occasional flicker of sunlight streaming through the narrow windows. On the walls hang portraits of ancestors, their stern faces serving as silent reminders of the lineage and responsibility the Lord must uphold. At the desk, the Lord sits straight-backed, his fingers tapping rhythmically on a piece of parchment. The room is dim, save for the warm light of the hearth and the occasional glow from the high windows. You notice the leather-bound books, their pages worn and yellowed with age, stacked neatly beside him, while maps of the lands under his control line the walls. He seems to be lost in thought, weighing his next move with the same deliberation that has guided his family for generations. A knock at the door interrupts the silence. The steward enters, bowing slightly, and steps forward with a small wooden tray of letters, sealed with the family crest. The steward places the tray before the Lord, who opens the first letter with swift, practiced movements. His eyes scan the contents quickly, pausing only when something catches his attention. A small sigh escapes him, and he sets the letter aside. there's no time to waste. He's already moving to the next one, and then another, each one carrying news of the estate's operations, requests from tenants, and letters from other lords. It's a routine he's long been accustomed to, but the weight of his family's legacy presses down with each decision. With every letter, every conversation, the future of his lands is shaped. Historians debate whether medieval lords truly had control over every aspect of their lands, or whether they delegated authority to stewards, vassals, or knights. Some say that the lord's direct involvement was necessary for maintaining order, while others argue that these lords rarely had time to focus on anything other than matters of diplomacy and defense. Regardless of how much the lord was involved in day-to-day affairs, it's clear that the castle and its inhabitants were his responsibility, and that responsibility weighed heavily on his shoulders. You watch as the lord discusses an issue with the steward, his voice low but firm. The problem seems to be a conflict between neighboring farms, a dispute over land usage that could escalate if left unresolved. The lord listens carefully, offering solutions and adjustments, all the while keeping his cool. The steward takes notes, his quill scratching the parchment with quick, steady strokes. A decision will be made, but it will be one that takes careful consideration. As the discussion wraps up, the steward leaves, and the lord leans back in his chair. He takes a moment of silence before rising to his feet. There's still more work to do, but the weight of the day's responsibilities presses less heavily now. The decisions made in this room will determine not only the course of his day, but also the lives of the people under his protection. The castle is both his home and his office, a space where power and responsibility intertwine with every decision. You stand in the doorway for a moment, watching him as he walks over to the window, gazing out at the distant horizon. The castle is his kingdom, and in this room he holds the reins. But even the lord must answer to the responsibilities of his family, his people, and his legacy. The role is one of duty, not just privilege. It's a balance between leadership and legacy, between tradition and the ever-changing needs of the land. You step away from the lord's study and make your way through the castle corridors, down the worn stone steps leading to the lower levels. The sounds of swords being sharpened and the rhythmic thudding of hammers fill the air, guiding you toward the armory. The dim light of early morning streams in through small, high windows, casting long shadows across the stone floor. The scent of oil, leather, and iron mingles in the air as you approach a bustling scene, the armory. Knights and squires, still clad in their practice attire, loose tunics and leather boots, are gathered around, polishing their armor and weapons. The air is alive with energy as they prepare for the day's training. The blacksmith, a burly man with soot-streaked hands, stands at his forge, hammering away at a piece of steel with a loud, resonating clang. Sparks fly in all directions as he molds the metal into the shape of a sword. A young squire stands nearby, carefully watching the process, eager to learn the trade. A knight, his armor half donned, examines his sword, drawing it slowly from its sheath. He inspects the blade closely, running his thumb along the edge to ensure it's sharp. The metal gleams faintly in the flickering light of the forge. His gaze is steady, and there's a quiet intensity in the way he moves, the focus of someone who knows that the weapons they wield are not just for show, they're for survival. Nearby, another knight practices with a wooden sword, his movements precise and fluid. The clink of metal and the thud of wood against wood create a rhythmic pattern as he spars with a squire, who is struggling to keep up with the older, more experienced warrior. Their grunts and the sound of their feet shifting on the stone floor echo through the room, marking the intensity of their training. Historians still argue whether knights spent more time in the armory preparing for battle or engaging in the social and ceremonial duties of their role. Some believe that knights were warriors first, spending countless hours training and honing their skills. Others suggest that as chivalry grew, knights increasingly focused on courtly duties, with less emphasis on actual combat. Regardless of the truth, the armory is a place of preparation, where every knight must be ready to defend their lord's honor and, in many cases, their very life. You observe as the squire struggles to lift a helmet, its weight clearly too much for him. A knight steps forward and offers guidance, adjusting the squire's stance and demonstrating how to properly don the armor. With each piece, the squire becomes more familiar with the process, and the weight of the gear begins to feel less burdensome. In the corner of the room, another knight sharpens his axe, his movements deliberate and focused. Each pass of the whetstone across the blade is measured, a routine that is as much about discipline as it is about maintaining the weapon. There is a calming rhythm to the act, a reminder of the quiet confidence needed before battle. The polished blades on the walls and the armor lined up in rows are not just symbols of status. They are tools of survival, and the knights know they must maintain them with care. The armory is not just a place of preparation. It's a reflection of the discipline and strength required of a knight. It's where physical endurance meets mental focus, where tradition and training combine. The work in this space is never finished, just as the knight's duties never end. Each day begins with the same routine, preparing for whatever challenge lies ahead, whether on the battlefield or in the service of the Lord. You take a moment to soak in the scene, the sounds of metal against metal, the sense of purpose in the air. It's a reminder that for all the grandeur of the castle above, it's places like this, beneath the surface, that hold the true weight of responsibility. You leave the armory behind, the clanging of metal slowly fading as you make your way back toward the main floors of the castle. The sounds of the castle's heartbeat continue to echo through the stone corridors, the murmur of voices, the rustling of fabric, the creak of wooden doors. It's time for the servants to begin their daily duties, and as you pass through the hallways, you see them moving through their tasks with practiced efficiency. The kitchens are busy with activity. The heat from the large hearth fills the space, the flames dancing and crackling as they cook large pots of stew. You can smell the savory aroma of roasted meats, onions, and herbs. The cooks, wearing aprons and simple tunics, work with an intensity that comes from years of experience. The clatter of knives cutting vegetables, the stirring of pots, and the rhythmic pounding of a pestle in a mortar create a harmonious blend of sounds. The smell of freshly baked bread rises from the ovens, and a servant lad carries a loaf to the table, his hands steady despite the weight. Nearby, another group of servants is washing dishes in large wooden tubs, their hands submerged in the soapy water as they scrub away the remnants of the morning's meal. The dishes, ranging from large clay bowls to delicate silver goblets, are meticulously cleaned and set aside to dry. It's a steady, never-ending task, but one that keeps the castle running smoothly. In the laundry, another group of servants tends to the fine fabrics worn by the lord and his family. The sound of water splashing as it's carried from the well fills the air, and the rhythmic pounding of the cloth against wooden surfaces echoes through the room. The servants work together, carefully cleaning the linens and ensuring that every garment is spotless. You notice that even the simplest tasks are done with pride. There's a quiet sense of dignity in the work they do, knowing that every action helps maintain the order of the castle. Outside, you spot the stable hands, preparing the horses for the day's duties. The air is fresh and crisp as they groom the steeds, brushing down their coats and adjusting the harnesses. The horses nuzzle their caretakers affectionately, the sounds of hooves scraping the ground mingling with the soft whinnies and snorts. The stable boys move quickly, their hands deft as they prepare the horses for the Lord's travels. They work with a quiet focus, and despite the grueling nature of their work, there's a sense of pride in their movements. The horses are more than just animals. They're essential to the life of the castle, and the stable hands treat them with care and respect. Historians still debate the life of the medieval servant. Some say they lived in harsh conditions, working long hours with little reward. Others suggest that, while their work was demanding, the servants had a strong sense of community and purpose, sharing in the daily rhythms of castle life. Regardless, their importance to the functioning of the castle cannot be overstated. Without them, the Lord's family would be unable to enjoy the comforts they take for granted. As you move through the castle, watching the servants in action, you realize that their lives are just as vital to the castle's operation as the Lord's. Their work, although often invisible, keeps the wheels of the castle turning. Each small task, whether it's preparing food, cleaning dishes, or caring for the horses, contributes to the larger function of the household. The castle's grandeur may be built on stone and wood, but it is the servants who make it live and breathe. The hustle and bustle of the servants begins to settle into a rhythm as you move through the castle, following the sounds of the day's unfolding. The great hall, now cleared of breakfast remnants, slowly quiets down as the first formal meeting of the day is about to begin. It's the Lord's morning council, a gathering that marks the beginning of his day's duties, a time where decisions are made and the affairs of the castle are discussed. You enter the council room, a small chamber with a long wooden table at its center, surrounded by high-backed chairs. The walls are adorned with shields, banners, and family crests, proudly displayed as symbols of power and heritage. A large, heavy tapestry hangs on one wall, depicting the castle's most famous battle. and the sunlight, filtering through the narrow windows, makes the colors of the banners gleam in the quiet morning light. The Lord is already seated at the head of the table, a figure of authority in his deep, dark velvet robes. His expression is serious, and his posture remains upright, shoulders square, as he prepares to listen to the reports of his trusted advisers. Beside him, the lady of the house sits, her hands folded neatly on the table, poised and attentive, though her role in these meetings is often to advise and support the Lord rather than to make the final decisions. The two of them make a formidable pair, overseeing not just the castle, but the people who depend on its upkeep. The first to speak is the steward, a middle-aged man with a graying beard who oversees the day-to-day running of the estate. His tone is respectful, but his words are sharp and direct as he reports on the latest matters in the village, the grain stocks, the condition of the crops, and the needs of the tenants. He presents his reports, drawing maps of the lands and offering practical solutions to the issues that have arisen. He looks to the Lord for approval, and the room falls silent, waiting for a decision. Next, the captain of the guard reports on the safety of the lands, detailing any skirmishes or disturbances that have occurred. His armor clinks lightly as he speaks, and you notice the scars on his face, a testament to years of service. His words are concise, but full of weight. His duty is to ensure the castle's safety, and his vigilance is evident as he lays out to the current threats and the steps taken to address them. As the council continues, each advisor offers their insights. The treasurer speaks about the state of the castle's finances. The chaplain offers prayers and spiritual counsel, and the master of hounds provides updates on the hunt. The Lord listens intently, nodding occasionally, and once the final report is delivered, he takes a moment to deliberate. His decision is swift and measured, and his word is final. The room exhales collectively as the council's matters are settled, and everyone rises, ready to return to their duties. Historians debate how much influence a medieval lord truly had in these councils, whether they ruled with absolute power, or whether their advisors held more sway in shaping decisions. Some argue that lords had the final say in all matters, while others suggest that their rule was tempered by the opinions of their trusted aides. Either way, these meetings served as the heartbeat of the castle's operations. The decisions made here rippled through the estate, affecting every servant, tenant, and villager. As you leave the council room, you feel the weight of the day's decisions settling over you. The Lord has spoken, and the castle is now set into motion for the day. The great hall fills with new purpose, the castle's functions moving forward, and the world outside the stone walls continues to turn. But inside the castle, the air feels a little different, a little more charged, as the weight of the morning council hangs in the air, reminding everyone of the responsibilities that come with power. The morning council is done, and the castle begins to pulse with the energy of the day's duties. After the discussions are finished, the Lord takes a moment for himself, while his guards and soldiers shift into action. The courtyard outside the main keep comes alive with the sounds of training, the clashing of swords, the grunts of men pushing their bodies to their limits, and the occasional command barked by the captain of the guard. The castle's warriors are already preparing for the day's sparring sessions and military drills. The first thing you notice is the smell of sweat and leather in the air. The stables are nearby, and the smell of horses mingles with the scent of oiled armor and the freshly sharpened swords that hang on racks near the training area. The sun, still climbing in the sky, casts a golden light over the entire scene, illuminating the courtyard in a soft morning glow. The soldiers are busy practicing their combat skills, and a few knights are already in full armor, their helms polished to a gleaming finish. The sound of swords clashing rings through the air as two knights engage in a mock duel, their heavy metal blades striking with a sharp, loud ring. The thud of boots against the cobblestone courtyard can be heard as they circle each other, moving with practiced precision. Their armor rattles as they strike, and the movement is a blur of metal and skill. It's clear that they are both testing their strength and endurance, training for the battles that may one day come. Beside them, a group of squires practice with wooden staves, their movements more awkward but still full of energy. The younger squires look to their older, more experienced knights for guidance, mimicking their actions and listening intently to the lessons being shouted across the training grounds. The training session is organized, but there's an undercurrent of camaraderie as the warriors bond over their shared struggle. Every thrust, every block, and every dodge is a step toward becoming a better fighter and a more loyal servant of the castle. Historians still debate the true nature of medieval knight training. Some say it was mostly about physical strength and the ability to wield a weapon, while others argue that a knight's training was deeply rooted in honor, discipline, and spiritual preparation. Some knights were trained in the art of diplomacy, while others honed their fighting techniques for war. Whatever the focus, these training sessions were crucial in creating men who would defend the castle with their lives. Amid the clattering of weapons, a tournament is being prepared. The tournament is a grand affair, and knights from near and far are invited to participate. There's a sense of excitement in the air as the banners are unfurled and the crowds begin to gather. The tournament is not just a test of strength and skill, but a social event where the knights can prove their worth in front of the Lord, his family, and the gathered at court. You can hear the shuffling of feet as people take their seats on the benches, their eyes fixed on the central arena where the jousting will soon begin. The tournament is filled with pageantry. The knights wear brightly colored surcoats, emblazoned with their family crests, and the flags wave proudly in the wind. The horses are saddled, their reins gleaming in the sunlight, and the air is thick with anticipation. The knights line up, and the sounds of the crowd grow louder as the first joust begins. The tension is palpable as the two knights charge at each other, lances raised. The crack of wood and the thunderous sound of hooves echo through the courtyard. It's a spectacle that draws everyone's attention, a reminder of the honor and strength that comes with being a knight. As the joust ends in a dramatic clash, The crowd erupts in applause. The knights dismount, their faces flushed with exertion, but also pride. The defeated knight, though slightly bruised, shakes hands with the victor. There's no animosity here, just the respect of warriors who share the same code of honor. The crowd begins to disperse, their murmurs of excitement fading as they head back to their duties. The tournament, while a celebration, is also a reminder of the castle's martial roots. Every battle, every display of strength and skill reinforces the importance of the knightly code in the life of the castle. The knights train not just for honor, but for the safety of the castle, its people, and its lands. The ceremony of the tournament may end in cheers, but the true purpose remains: to ensure the strength and survival of the castle in times of war. As the sun begins its descent, casting long shadows over the courtyard, the castle shifts its focus from the rigors of the day to the much-anticipated feast. You wander through the halls, now alive with the rustle of noble garments and the hum of servants preparing the evening's meal. The Lord's Hall is grand and welcoming, with its towering wooden beams, large stone hearth, and the rich scent of roasting meats and baking bread wafting through the air. The feast hall is a place of contrast, brightly lit by the glow of torches on the walls, yet filled with the heavy shadows of large oak tables, covered with rich tapestries depicting the history of the family. The long tables, lined with fine silver goblets and platters of food, are a sharp reminder of the wealth and influence that the castle holds. The flickering firelight dances on the polished stone floors, illuminating the faces of those who have gathered for the evening's feast. Noble guests, dressed in their finest attire, are already arriving. The women wear richly embroidered gowns of deep hues, crimson, emerald, and sapphire, while the men are adorned in flowing tunics of silk, their belts heavy with gold and jewels. Their laughter fills the room as they greet each other, raising their goblets in friendly toasts. The air is filled with the sounds of conversation, the clinking of glasses, and the pleasant hum of music from the minstrels in the corner. The lord and lady of the castle take their seats at the head of the table. The lord is regal in his attire, a richly decorated cloak draped over his shoulders, while the lady is elegant in a gown of deep russet, her hair done in a complex arrangement of braids and ribbons. They smile warmly as the guests settle into their places, a reflection of the authority they command within the castle. Tonight is a celebration of not just family and community, but of the Lord's wealth, his power, and his ability to provide for those in his care. The feast itself is a lavish affair, with platters of roast boar, pheasant, and venison brought to the table, accompanied by bowls of fresh fruit, cheese, and bread. A large cauldron of wine is passed from servant to servant, filling the guests' cups as they indulge in the delicacies laid before them. The hall is alive with conversation, as the nobles discuss politics, military campaigns, and local gossip. But there is always a sense of deference to the Lord, who listens quietly, occasionally offering his thoughts on matters of import. Historians still debate whether feasts in the medieval period were purely celebratory events, or if they had deeper political and social significance. Some believe that the lavish nature of these feasts was a display of wealth and status, while others argue that they served as a way for the Lord to solidify alliances, demonstrate power, and reward loyal subjects. Either way, the importance of feasts in medieval life cannot be overstated. They were a central part of noble life, marking the passage of time and reinforcing the bonds between families, vassals, and the Lord. As the evening progresses, the atmosphere becomes livelier. The minstrels play a lively tune on their lutes, and guests rise from their seats to dance in the center of the room. The dancers twirl and glide across the floor, their colorful gowns and tunics spinning in the candlelight. The joy of the celebration is palpable as the castle's inhabitants, both noble and servant, join together in merriment, their laughter rising in the warmth of the firelit hall. Outside, the castle is quiet, with only the sounds of the evening wind and the occasional call of a guard echoing in the distance. But inside, the castle is alive, buzzing with the energy of the evening's feast. The Lord looks on with satisfaction as his family and guests enjoy the night, knowing that the castle's strength is not just in its stone walls or its wealth, but in the relationships it has built with the people it serves. As the evening draws to a close, guests begin to retire for the night, leaving behind a hall filled with the remnants of the feast. The lord and lady of the castle remain seated for a moment longer, enjoying the quiet after the revelry. It's a reminder that even in a world of power and responsibility, there is still time for celebration, for unity, and for the simple joys of a shared meal. As the night deepens, the castle begins to settle into the familiar silence of evening. The feasting and laughter in the hall have tapered off, leaving only the occasional clink of dishes being cleared. The high stone walls of the castle, which during the day seem almost invincible, now loom ominously in the dim light of the torches flickering along the battlements. Outside, the moon casts a pale glow on the surrounding countryside, with the dark shapes of trees swaying gently in the breeze. It's time for the night watch to begin, and the castle's sentinels prepare for their duties. They don their cloaks, wrapped tightly against the cold night air, and gather near the entrance of the keep, waiting for the signal to begin their patrols. The guards are sturdy men, many of them veterans of past battles, their faces hard and weathered by years of service. Their armor, though simpler than that of the knights, is practical and functional. Leather tunics reinforced with iron and steel, and sturdy boots that make no sound on the stone floors as they move. The captain of the guard, a tall and imposing figure, stands at the front of the group. His eyes scan the horizon, noting the position of the moon and the distant outline of the land. He gives a signal, and the men begin their rounds, moving in pairs to cover the entire castle perimeter. The air is cold and crisp, the quiet broken only by the occasional sound of a shifting tree branch or the distant hoot of an owl. The torches flicker along the walls, casting long shadows as the guards move into the darkness, their footsteps echoing softly in the stillness. Historians have long debated the role of the castle's night watch in medieval life. Some argue that the primary function of the night watch was to keep out invaders or raiders, ensuring the safety of the castle and its inhabitants. Others suggest that the watch also served as a form of social control, keeping the peace and ensuring that the villagers and lower classes didn't overstep their bounds after dark. Whatever the case, the night watch was a crucial part of castle life, and its importance cannot be understated. You follow one of the guards as he walks along the walls, his hand resting lightly on the hilt of his sword. The view from the ramparts is breathtaking, the moon casting a silver sheen over the landscape. The dark silhouettes of distant hills and forests are barely visible in the night, but the guard knows the land well. Every stone, every tree, every bend in the path has been memorized over time. There is comfort in this knowledge, the knowledge that the castle is protected by vigilant eyes, even in the dead of night. The sound of a horn signals the end of one shift and the beginning of another. The guards rotate, moving from the walls to the courtyard, where they hand off their duties to the next watch. You watch them exchange quiet words, their breath misting in the cold air before they begin to disperse. The men take their positions, settling into their places for the long night ahead. As you leave the walls and return to the warmth of the castle, you reflect on the life of the guards. Their vigilance, their discipline, and their dedication to the safety of the castle are not often recognized, but without them, the castle would be nothing more than a pile of stone. The watch is a thankless job, but it's one that provides a sense of security, allowing the rest of the castle's inhabitants to sleep soundly in their beds. The evening wears on, and the castle continues its rhythm. The sounds of the night watch, the rustle of the wind, and the soft murmur of the castle's heartbeat. Outside, the world is dark and silent, but inside, the castle is alive with purpose, protected by the men who stand watch over it. As the moon rises higher in the sky, the castle's nightly stillness becomes more pronounced. The high stone walls, with their sturdy ramparts and towers, now look even more imposing under the pale, silvery light. The torches on the battlements flicker in the cold wind, casting erratic shadows that dance like ghosts along the walls. Below, in the courtyard, the flickering light from the hearths inside the castle offers a small glow of warmth against the chilly night. But outside, the air is sharp and cold, and the sound of the night watch's footsteps echoes in the silence. The watch is not just about guarding the outer walls. As you walk through the darkened corridors, you realize that the castle is also watched from within. In the castle's inner chambers, a different kind of vigilance is at work. The lord's private quarters, dimly lit by the faint glow of a single candle, are still. But even in the quiet, the servants and guards who keep the lord's home secure are constantly alert. You pass the guards who stand at attention in the hallways, their eyes ever watchful, their swords ever ready. There is a sense of quiet authority in their stance, and their presence is a reminder that even in the heart of the castle, security is paramount. In the Lord's chamber, the Lord himself sits at a small desk, his back to the room as he writes by candlelight. The slow scratch of quill on parchment is the only sound in the otherwise still room. He seems lost in thought, his mind consumed by matters of state, family, and future battles. The servant girl who attends to him is careful to avoid disturbing him, but she watches his every movement as he writes, his ink-stained hands steady and deliberate. She knows the weight of the responsibility that rests on the Lord's shoulders. His decisions, his plans, ripple out through the castle, affecting not only the noble families, but the lives of everyone who serves beneath him. Historians still debate the mental and emotional toll of medieval leadership. Some argue that lords bore an immense burden, their lives marked by constant decision-making and the pressure to maintain order and justice. Others suggest that while their power was considerable, they were often little more than figureheads, their decisions influenced by advisors, military leaders, and the overarching needs of the kingdom. Either way, the quiet solitude of the Lord's chamber in the late hours of the night speaks to the isolation of power. The weight of leadership felt most keenly in the hours when the castle sleeps, and only the quiet scribbling of the Lord's quill breaks the silence. Across the hall, the lady of the house sits in her chamber, embroidering a fine tapestry by the light of a single lantern. Her delicate fingers move skillfully, stitching bright threads into the fabric, creating a vibrant scene of nature. She is calm, focused on her work, but her mind is never far from the castle's many concerns, the servants, the guests, the Lord's many duties. In the quiet of the night, she is the one who ensures that the household runs smoothly, even as the Lord attends to matters of state. It's a partnership, but a silent one, as both have their separate roles to play in the intricate web of the castle's life. From the window in the ladies' room you can see the flickering lights of the night watch on the walls, the guards walking in silent patrols around the outer perimeter of the castle. They pass by the tall, darkened towers, their figures appearing like shadows against the stone. The scene is quiet, the only sound the wind brushing through the trees and the occasional soft murmur of voices from inside the castle walls. The castle's watchers, both within and without, continue their work as the night deepens. The weight of responsibility, the vigilance, and the quiet observance continue uninterrupted, even as the world outside remains still. These silent watchers, whether guards, lords, or servants, are the ones who keep the castle's lifeblood flowing. Without them, the castle would be nothing more than a collection of stone and wood, empty and lifeless. The night wears on, but inside the castle, the vigil never ends. You sense that there is always someone, somewhere, watching over the castle, ensuring that its walls remain strong and its people safe. The quiet power of the night watch continues to echo throughout the castle, a reminder that even in the stillness of the night, the castle is always alive with purpose. As the night gives way to dawn, the first light of day creeps in, casting a pale glow over the stone walls of the castle. The air is still cool, the faintest chill lingering as the sun begins to rise. The torches along the battlements have long since been extinguished, their embers fading into the early morning light. The silence of the night is replaced with the distant sounds of the castle coming to life. The first rooster crow breaks the quiet, followed by the soft thud of heavy boots on the cobbled floors. The castle's first bell tolls, signaling the beginning of the day's rituals. Within the keep, the servants begin to stir, preparing for the day ahead. The large hearth in the kitchen crackles to life, its fire casting a warm glow over the stone room as the cooks begin preparing the morning meal. The scent of fresh bread and roasting meats begins to fill the air, mingling with the fragrance of fresh herbs from the nearby garden. In the Lord's private quarters, the Lord himself begins his morning routine. He rises from his bed, the heavy furs falling away as he stretches, and begins to don his clothing for the day. His tunic is simple yet regal, a deep burgundy fabric adorned with family crests. A servant attends to him, offering him a goblet of wine and a warm towel to cleanse his face. As he gazes out of the window, the first light of dawn reflects off the distant hills, and he takes a moment of solitude before the day's duties begin. Historians still argue about the level of formality in medieval morning routines. Some suggest that lords and ladies adhered to strict rituals, their mornings governed by tradition and ceremonial importance. Others argue that many of these routines were practical necessities, serving to help the nobility prepare for a long day of work and responsibility. Regardless, morning rituals like these set the tone for the rest of the day, marking the transition from the quiet of the night to the bustling pace of castle life. Meanwhile, the lady of the house begins her own morning ritual. She rises, wrapped in a robe of soft indigo fabric, her hair still mussed from sleep. A servant enters with a small basin of water for her to wash her face. As she moves toward her vanity, a young servant girl prepares a fresh pot of tea, the aroma of jasmine filling the air. The lady stands before a mirror, carefully arranging her hair in the intricate braids that are required by her status. Her movements are graceful, but there's a sense of quiet determination in her actions. Her role in the castle is as much about diplomacy and management as it is about grace and beauty. Downstairs, the castle's master of the house, a burly man named Gerald, is already in the dining hall. His large frame sits at the head of the long table, his morning meal spread before him. The food is plentiful: sliced meats, breads, cheeses, and fruit. The servants rush to serve him, refilling his goblet with ale as he devours his meal in silence. Gerald's duties are often less glamorous, but no less important. He ensures the castle's daily operations run smoothly, coordinating everything from the protection of the castle's lands to the oversight of the work in the fields. His presence is quiet but necessary as he moves between the different areas of the castle, making sure everything is in order. The sounds of the servants preparing the day's work ripple through the halls. The low murmur of conversation fills the air as they gather in their respective duties, carrying baskets of food to the storerooms or cleaning the halls in preparation for the Lord's first meeting of the day. The scent of wood and herbs drifts down the stone corridors, mixing with the smells of breakfast as the hustle and bustle of the castle builds. By the time the lord and lady have finished their personal rituals, the castle is fully awake. The daily routines are in full swing. People are moving in and out of rooms, the castle walls echoing with the noise of daily life. The transition from night to day in a medieval castle is marked not just by the rising sun, but by the hum of activity that fills the air. As the morning continues, you can feel the energy shift. The quiet serenity of dawn gives way to the busy pace of castle life. The breakfast hall fills with the hum of voices and clinking utensils. You can hear the distant clop of hooves as the stable hands prepare the horses for the lord's ride, while the knights begin to gather their weapons for training. The castle is now fully awake, and the day stretches ahead with all its responsibilities, battles, and expectations. But for now, as the sun climbs higher in the sky, everything seems possible. The castle stands tall, sturdy, and prepared, waiting to meet whatever challenges the day may bring. By mid-morning, the castle has settled into a rhythm, and the lord is ready for the day's formal duties. The sounds of bustling servants fade into the background as you make your way down the long stone corridors to the great hall. The lord's chamber is a stone room with high ceilings, large windows, and a heavy oak door that creaks when it opens. The stone walls are lined with tapestries depicting scenes of battles and noble hunts, and the light from the high windows casts a soft glow on the worn yet polished floor. Inside, a few trusted advisors have already gathered. The lord enters, followed by his guards. His face is set with the weight of leadership. There are no smiles here, only the solemnity of responsibility. He takes his seat at the head of the table, a heavy wooden chair adorned with intricate carvings of the family crest, and gestures for the others to sit. His hand rests on the table, his fingers tapping lightly against the worn wood, signaling that the court is now in session. The room quiets as various matters of the castle are discussed: land disputes, trade agreements, taxes, and the defense of the castle's borders. The lord listens intently, his eyes focused, while his advisors present reports. Each advisor speaks in turn, offering their insights and suggestions. The lord's responses are sharp and decisive, his words measured but filled with authority. His role is not just to make decisions, but to oversee the welfare of the entire castle and its people. Historians still debate the role of lords in medieval courts. Some argue that the lord was the ultimate authority, making decisions that affected every aspect of the realm. Others suggest that the court was more collaborative, with advisors and vassals playing an equally important role in the decision-making process. Regardless of the precise power dynamics, it's clear that these audiences were critical moments in the life of the castle, where policies were set and the castle's future was shaped. Amidst the discussions of land and power, there is also a sense of camaraderie among the advisors and the lord. Though their work is serious, there are moments of light banter, small jokes passed between the men, breaking the tension. These brief moments of levity remind you that life in the castle is not just about duty and responsibility, but also about the bonds that tie everyone together. The Lord's audience isn't just for practical matters. It's also an opportunity for the castle's political maneuvering to take place. Alliances are solidified, debts are settled, and rivalries are quietly addressed. The Lord may ask for advice, or even for a word of support in a particular matter. It's a delicate balance of power, where the Lord's decisions have wide-reaching effects, but the advisors also hold sway in shaping the direction of the castle. After some time, the Lord dismisses the court, signaling the end of the session. The advisors file out, but a few remain behind to speak with the Lord privately. The day's business continues, but there is a palpable sense of relief as the formal proceedings draw to a close. As the Lord leaves the hall, you notice a few young pages standing by, waiting to carry messages or fetch documents. The Lord moves with purpose, his cloak billowing behind him as he heads to his next engagement. The castle, once again, returns to its regular rhythm, but the weight of the Lord's decisions remains, shaping everything from the food on the table to the safety of the castle's people. Outside, the sounds of the day continue. The noise of the blacksmith's hammer can be heard in the distance, and the steady clop of hooves echoes from the courtyard as the guards prepare for their next patrol. But inside the castle, the quiet hum of the Lord's decisions lingers, ready to guide the fate of the castle, its people, and its lands. As the day begins to wane, the castle prepares for its final important gathering, an evening council. The sun has begun its slow descent beyond the horizon, casting a warm, golden light over the castle's stone walls. The courtyard is quieter now, the hum of daily life giving way to the more subdued sounds of evening. The guards continue their patrols, and the stables are busy with the final preparations for the evening's ride. But in the castle, there is a different atmosphere altogether. Inside, the hearths are lit again, filling the rooms with a flickering glow as the evening progresses. The Lord's evening council is a more intimate affair, a smaller gathering of key advisors, trusted family members, and anyone else with something of importance to discuss. As you walk through the hallways, the air is filled with the low murmur of conversation. You can feel the tension in the air, as each individual knows that this is a time for important matters to be addressed, decisions that could affect not just the castle, but the broader kingdom as well. The council takes place in the Lord's study, a small private room away from the main hall. The stone walls are adorned with bookshelves filled with scrolls and books, some of which date back to the time of the Lord's ancestors. A large table sits in the center of the room, surrounded by chairs where the advisors sit. The Lord takes his place at the head of the table, his presence commanding respect. There's no more room for jest or banter. This is a time for serious discussions. Historians still debate the nature of medieval councils, how much influence the advisors truly had versus the Lord's ultimate power. Some suggest that these councils were more of a formality, where the Lord listened to counsel but made decisions on his own. Others argue that the council was the true seat of power, where decisions were made collectively, and the Lord's will was simply a reflection of the broader consensus. Regardless, the council in the Lord's study represents a final layer of decision-making before the night settles in, one by one. Each advisor presents their concerns, ranging from trade routes to matters of law. The Lord listens intently, nodding occasionally, his fingers tapping against the surface of the table. His face is solemn, but his mind is sharp, weighing every word. You sense the weight of leadership bearing down on him as the conversation unfolds. There is no room for mistakes, no time for hesitation. The Lord's decisions, though made in private, affect every aspect of life within the castle. At times, the Lord offers his thoughts, carefully considering the advice given. His words are deliberate, each one measured with a cool sense of authority. The discussions range from practical matters, how to ensure the harvest goes smoothly, to political issues, such as negotiations with neighboring territories. There are also moments of more personal concern, where the Lord's family matters or his own health are discussed, but these are few and far between. As the council meeting draws to a close, the Lord rises from his seat, signaling that the day's business has been concluded. His decision has been made, and it's time for the advisors to depart. The room, which was once filled with the hum of debate, now quiets. A few final words are exchanged, but the atmosphere has shifted. Decisions have been made, and the course is set. The Lord's decrees will be carried out, and the kingdom will continue on its steady path. The council has ended, but the weight of the decisions made will linger, shaping the future of the castle, its people, and its lands. The Lord stands in the room for a moment longer, his back to the window, looking out at the fading light of day. He reflects on the day's discussions, already preparing for the challenges that lie ahead. As the Lord walks toward the door, you notice the subtle shift in the castle's mood. The day's busy pace has slowed, and the castle is ready to rest for the night. The evening council may have been small in comparison to the larger gatherings earlier in the day, but its importance cannot be understated, for in these quiet moments, the future of the castle is shaped. As night blankets the castle, the atmosphere shifts from the intensity of the day to the quiet rhythm of the evening. The high stone walls, which had once been bathed in the sunlight of the afternoon, now cast long, dark shadows over the courtyard. The bustling of the day has been replaced by a sense of stillness, broken only by the occasional shout of a distant guard or the rustling of leaves in the wind. The air has grown colder, the temperature dropping as the warmth of the sun fades. A few scattered torches remain lit, their flickering flames offering the only light in the otherwise darkened courtyard. Inside, the castle begins to settle into the evening routine. The great hall, once filled with the noise of laughter and conversation, is now quiet. The large hearths crackle softly, casting a golden glow over the long wooden tables where the servants finish cleaning up the remnants of the evening meal. The rich smell of roasted meats and freshly baked bread still lingers in the air, mixing with the earthy scent of wood smoke. The low murmur of conversation from the servants fills the hall as they go about their final tasks for the night. The Lord, having completed his final audience with the council, now retires to his private quarters for some solitude. His footsteps echo on the stone floor as he walks down the hall, his heavy boots muted by the thick, worn rugs that cover the floors of the castle. The room is large and sparsely furnished, with a great four-poster bed at the center, draped in dark velvet curtains. A warm fire crackles in the hearth, and the Lord sits before it, removing his boots and setting aside his tunic for the evening. Historians still argue about the nature of medieval lords' private lives. Some suggest they were often solitary figures, surrounded by advisors, but rarely engaging with others in a personal sense. Others claim that the castle's lord was more integrated with his family and servants, leading with a sense of personal connection as well as authority. In either case, moments of solitude like this by the hearth allowed the Lord to reflect on the day's events, readying himself for the next day's duties. Meanwhile, the lady of the house performs her evening rituals. The night air is cool as she walks into her private chamber, her slippers barely making a sound on the stone floor. Her chamber is a more intimate space than the Lord's grand study, a quiet retreat where she can unwind. The bed is smaller, draped in light linens, and there are delicate vases of flowers on a small table beside the window. The soft sound of wind chimes in the distance mingles with the crackle of the fire in the hearth. As the lady undresses and prepares for bed, a servant enters with a small bowl of warm water and a cloth. The lady dips the cloth into the water, gently cleansing her face and neck. Her movements are graceful, and there is an undeniable air of calm in her room, a stark contrast to the busy, public nature of the day. Once ready for rest, she sits beside the hearth, her thoughts no longer focused on the affairs of the castle, but on the quiet of the night. The castle is settling into its nocturnal pace, but even in the quiet, the undercurrent of activity continues. The guards are still on duty, patrolling the walls and the gates. The sound of their footsteps echoes faintly through the halls, reminding you that the castle is never truly silent. Even as the day's business has ended, the weight of its responsibilities continues to loom. Outside, the landscape is shrouded in darkness, but the glow of the castle's torches and the occasional light from a window make it clear that the castle is far from dormant. The distant hills and trees are dark shapes in the night, and the soft sounds of nature blend with the muted activity inside the walls. As the Lord and Lady settle into their respective chambers, the castle's final rituals for the night begin. The door to the Lord's chamber closes with a soft click, and the flicker of candlelight can be seen through the gaps in the stone walls. The castle is resting, but its rhythms continue, its pulse steady as it prepares for the next day. As midnight approaches, the castle's rhythm slows, the final echoes of activity fading into the deep shadows of the night. The torches outside flicker in the cold breeze, casting long, erratic shadows across the stone courtyard. Inside, the heavy wooden doors creak as the night watch closes the gates, sealing off the castle from the outside world. A soft hush falls over the stone walls as the castle, both its occupants and its surroundings, settles into the stillness of the night. Only the distant calls of the night birds and the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind break the profound silence. In the great hall, the last of the servants has gone to bed. The hearths have been banked, the remaining embers glowing softly, their heat still radiating through the air. The long tables once laden with food and drink are now cleared, and the wooden benches sit empty. The high vaulted ceilings, once alive with the sounds of laughter and conversation, are now quiet, with the flickering of candlelight casting dancing shadows on the stone walls. The last trace of the evening feast is a faint aroma of roasted meat and fresh bread, lingering in the air like a soft memory of the day. The night guard remains alert, walking the ramparts in careful, measured steps, their armor clinking softly in the still night. They stand watch over the castle and its lands, their gaze steady on the horizon, looking out into the darkened world beyond the walls. Their silhouette is faint against the night sky, the occasional movement of the guards shifting shadows that barely stir the tranquility of the castle. The wind picks up a little, blowing through the cracks in the stone, and their cloaks ripple gently in the breeze. The night is alive, but it feels like a world far removed from the activity and clamor of the daytime. Inside, in the Lord's chambers, the flickering candlelight gives way to shadows as the hour grows late. The Lord, now in bed, lies beneath the thick blankets of fur and linen, the weight of the day's decisions still pressing on his mind. His thoughts drift, but sleep does not come easily. The weight of leadership lingers, even in the quiet of the night. As he turns, the creak of the bed's frame is the only sound in the otherwise still room. Outside the window, the dark night sky stretches endlessly, the stars glittering above the stone walls. The lady of the house lies in her own chamber, tucked under a light quilt, her thoughts also quiet, but filled with the responsibilities of the day. The softness of the linens, the warmth of the hearth, and the distant sounds of the night guard's patrol fill the air. But her mind is often occupied with the future, what needs to be done, how to care for the castle's people, and how to support the Lord through the endless tasks that come with ruling. She shifts slightly in her sleep, the faintest sigh escaping her lips, and the room is once again quiet. In the servants' quarters, the steady breathing of the lower staff marks the rhythm of the castle's rest. The chamber is filled with humble beds and worn, yet sturdy, furnishings. The soft rustling of blankets as the night staff shift is the only disturbance to the deep stillness of the room. Outside, the moonlight dapples through small windows, casting faint light across the stone floor. The castle is at rest, but it is not idle. Its walls, strong and ancient, continue to guard the people who dwell inside. The silence is only the calm before the dawn, and though the castle sleeps, its pulse is steady. Each stone, each wooden beam, each torch still burning in the distance, continues to hum with life. The next day will bring new challenges, But for now, the castle is still. The lord, the lady, and the servants all rest, unaware that soon the first light of dawn will rise, bringing another day full of duties, decisions, and life. In the deepest part of the night, before the first light of morning touches the stone, the castle waits. Everything is still, yet full of purpose. Even as the wind picks up and rustles through the trees outside, the sense of quiet authority in the castle holds firm. It's a time of reflection, a time of peace, but it won't last long. Soon, the rising sun will warm the stones, and the castle will begin to stir once again. But for now, as the world outside the walls slumbers, the castle and all within it lie still, embraced by the calm and quiet of the night.